There's a ton of hype around AI agents, and most of it is vaporware. But today we're going to be talking about how AI automation workflows are actually the bridge to building out AI agents. And I'm having my friend Grant on, who runs an AI automation agency. A lot of what they build is marketing workflows for companies, and we're going to go deep into understanding the use cases for these workflows and how you can use these almost as a launch pad to then go build agents. We're going to talk about what we think the definition of an agent is. In my mind, an agent is a virtual employee. It basically has a job scope that it functions on, and it works continuously 24/7 a day. An example of this would be an SEO agent that does keyword research, writes the blog posts, publishes it, analyzes what's working, and then takes those learnings to the next iteration or the next round of writing that it does. And what I just described is an SEO specialist. That's a job title. And a lot of that can be automated now with these tools. And that's actually what an agent is. And we're going to talk about how the missing conversation with agents is people are going way too broad. They need to focus on a small scope of work. But you also have to have domain knowledge to actually be able to ship on that scope of work. You have to understand what the job to be done is, and then be able to define that so the agent can run in the background. Grant's also going to share what he's doing with LinkedIn automation for companies. It's super fascinating what they're doing. They're basically taking sales calls, taking those transcripts, and then turning them into LinkedIn posts. And this is happening all automated in the background. The person that just took the call gets a Slack message with these LinkedIn posts that are written based off of the conversations that I had. They just have to say, yes, it goes, and it gets scheduled to their LinkedIn. And I think this idea is actually really fascinating. The passive production of content that's just happening in the background as you go through your daily business life. And then we talk about the relationship between that, and then what does that look like from an agent perspective. And then we also talk about how agencies are starting to ship products as a way to create baseline revenue for the agency so they can have the spikiness with clients, but then they always know that they're going to have this income on a monthly basis. I've been talking to friends that are running AI automation agencies, product agencies, and all of them are universally describing this type of solution to make their cash flow more steady. Basically, building these products that are owned by the agency that create a consistent revenue and MRR, and then they go and do client work, and that creates that spikiness. And this episode is brought to you by Talent Fiber. Talent Fiber helps you hire global talent for your growth marketing positions. You can hire Google Ads specialists, SEO specialists, Facebook ad specialists, short form content video editors, whatever it is you're looking for. They help you find the best talent globally. Why they're better than all of these other headhunting agencies is because they function as a BPO, which stands for a business professional outsourcing agency. They offer 401ks, health insurance, and all the equivalent benefits in that location, that geography that they're hiring within. And this allows you to attract the best talent. Contrast, if you go to one of these other headhunting agencies, all they're doing is putting a job up on onlinejobs.ph. And as soon as you hire that candidate, they bounce out. Talent Fiber doesn't do that. They handle all the HR. They make sure that the employee's happy. And 80% of my team is hired from Talent Fiber. It's some of the best employees I've ever worked with. They honestly work harder than I could hire in the US. It's pretty surreal. Go to talentfiber.com to learn more. There's a link in the description as well. And here's today's show. Dude, thank you again. Grant, I'm so stoked to have you back, man. I don't even know where to start. I think your episode is one of the best performing we have on YouTube. So we're going to live up to that. And for context, for people who don't know what you do, you basically do AI automation as a service. So come in, build out these workflows for people. Where are you at now? What's your client level? How's the business going? What's going on there?
Yeah, it's been awesome. So first off, your podcast has also been the best performing use of my time because I've gotten a lot of people to apply for jobs from you. A lot of really cool hackers, people who are building cool stuff, love listening to you. So I've had a lot of really cool people reach out, and I hired Augusto, who's now on our team through you. So that was awesome. I don't know if I told you that.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So this year's been very interesting. Left Hampton in April. It's been about 8 months, and I feel like we finally nailed our service offers. So I can communicate what we do in a clear way that people actually are interested in, instead of being like, I'll build you 10 automations. They're like, oh, totally. I'm going to get a brand new CRM. So those are the types of things that I think people are really resonating with. And I think we'll end up closing the year somewhere around 165, 175K, which is awesome. I'm super happy about it.
Dude, I'm stoked. I love to hear it. I'm just looking at your website right now. So how you're kind of positioning it is basically like scale your company without headcount, which is I think actually the way that people are like starting to think about these like agents within their organization. Are the people you're working with, are they looking at this as like, yo, rather than hiring an employee, I'm going to like do this? Or are you kind of taking the employees they have already and like almost making them superhuman? Like I feel like there's two different ways to go about this. I'm curious what you're seeing kind of as the trends. And again, you're working with like SMBs, so 7 to 20, headcount types of organizations. But like, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, it's definitely the second side of it. So people are at a point where they're like, I want to scale up my production capacity. What can we do to the existing team of people I really like? Because almost no one likes adding people problems to their lives. So it's how can I make the people I really enjoy working with, the people who are really talented, that know my systems, how can I make them 30 to 50 to 100% more efficient? And so that's where we're looking at your existing tech stack and saying, okay, like you're using ClickUp, but you're actually not putting the data where it's supposed to go. You're not using all the features you're paying for. And then you're leaving all this automation potential on the table because you're just not aware of what's possible. So we really have to look at like, are you using the tool the way it was intended? Then are you getting all the stuff you're paying for? And HubSpot is another classic example. So many people are paying for HubSpot, not getting everything they're paying for. So we'll look at those things and then we build automation on top.
Oh, super interesting. So it's like, okay, here's your stack, and it's almost just like squeezing out the efficiency that's within like what they're using currently. Does that sound right?
Exactly. And sometimes we'll bring people over, like right now we're wrapping up a pipe drive to HubSpot implementation because just one tool is superior if you're really trying to grow. I think HubSpot is great to combine the marketing to the sales funnel and so on. But yeah, so sometimes we'll move people over from Notion to ClickUp, Monday to ClickUp, or pipe drive to HubSpot. But then at the end of the day, we're automating and making sure that those tools can talk to each other so that you don't have to go and copy and paste. And I know we talked about some marketing stuff. There's some really cool things we can do with Fathom that I'd love to talk to you about. But yeah, the world is our oyster right now. Things are happening.
Absolutely. Okay, so the larger thing and the thing that I'm going to geek out about this entire conversation is like people are starting, and I'm really starting to realize this as well, like what an agent actually is within an organization. So to me, it's like basically a digital employee that has a very finite scope of work that it actually does. And then it kind of iterates on that thing. So like what we're starting to experiment with is like a couple small things that I think will evolve into larger. And so like one of them is like, okay, I go and I build a SEO specialist, an AI SEO specialist, right? And it's this agent that basically does keyword research based off of these constraints of what bottom of funnel keywords are. It then goes and writes an article, has access to like Phrase.io's API, optimizes that article based off of what Phrase gives back as its suggestions, goes and publishes that to the website. And then it looks at the data and basically analyzes, content like this is performing best. I'm going to go write more like that. And then it just creates this like loop of it doing this indefinitely, right? So that used to be like literally like a human job role. Like I would hire somebody, they would do that thing. And this is now how I'm seeing this, like kind of realizing this is the application. Another one that's like, very obvious is like an AI receptionist for like, whatever company, say for dentists or something like that. Again, finite scope that's happening. And then the other thing that like we're kind of seeing is like channel specific actions, like on the marketing side. So for example, like here's this agent that is like just focused on like add creative variations, right? Or here's this agent that is just focused on like it writes tweets about a specific topic, it posts them, it looks at where the best performing were based off of the impression data pulling back from the API, and then it goes and it writes more, basically based off that data and that information. So it builds this like repository and kind of like a learning that's happening. Again, all we're doing is just mimicking the human job that was happening before, but removing that element. And instead of it, them only working 8 hours a day, this thing's 24/7 just running in the background. And if I can get that thing to function, then that's super valuable. So anyways, that's kind of the way that we're approaching it. I'm curious to see, Kier, how you're like seeing that actually like applied in these automation workflows. Like where does that fit in? Are there any loops that are happening where there's like self-learning that's going on? Or is there just more like, we get X data and then we're turning it into Y, or like how, anyway, I'm just trying to uncover like kind of what you're seeing on the front lines.
Yeah. Well, first I want to do like a yes and on what you just said, because everything you said, yes, and no better person to be looking at these things as you, who's got that economist background to say, I know where the data is. I know what's going to inform the next decision. And that's the loop that's very data centric. And I think that that's where that learning needs to come from. When we're talking about automation, it's usually a train track where we're just going down the path, right? Someone just signed their SOW. Let's go down the path of onboarding, right? And there isn't going to be a recursive loop where we're learning and we're making the loop bigger and more comprehensive and so on, right? We're trying to just move data from point A to point B based on a voluntary or involuntary trigger and move data. What you're describing is really a loop, as you said, but like a role. Like we are going to be producing new things with new information. And whether you're taking in a dashboard that the agent is going to go look at, take a screenshot, interpret, run it again, right? That is not where, I think that's where the line on automation stops. And you might have a situation where you use a memory key in an API for OpenAI, where you're like, all right, remember this conversation, but that's not coming up on the work that we're doing, quite honestly. A lot of it is like, how can we just speed up the team with fewer copy and paste moments throughout the day and administrative work? That's more the automation standpoint. And I think that leap, if you think about like kind of those graphs that always like they go up to a point and then there's like that blank space and then they go up to a point, blank space. I think that blank space is that learning loop that you're talking about between automation and agent.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Well, it's funny. It's sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'll write it down.
No. I think what I'm like realizing too is there's like domain expertise or knowledge that's necessary for that white space fill out. Like again, thinking about like the AI receptionist as an example, like you have to know the knowledge that is of the company. And also be able to like tie into whatever the action is that you're trying to get. Like maybe it's like more sales or something like that, right? To feed that back to this thing. And I think the same thing is happening, like, to use the AI SEO specialist, like that, agent job hire role, hypothetically, like you're basically saying, hey, your goal is to get more signups to happen from these pages. So like, here's all this, the Google Analytics data showing the landing pages they hit, and then that created signups. Let that influence the keyword research that you do in the future. So you're basically like taking, again, what that human would be doing, but almost like building that into the knowledge, like that loop that is happening, right? And so I think what I'm trying to say is that like, the general knowledge agent, I think that is way far off, right? Or like the general employee agent, but I think it's it's way more likely that I can go and be like, again, what I just described, like here's how here's the framework for keyword research to find bottom of funnel keywords, right? This is what you look for. Now go to keyword research. You have access to this API to look at keyword volumes and like difficulty, etc. Write articles using this, publish them using this API, come back to this thing, and based off of this data, let that influence what you write next, right? Every 30 days audit, right? And it's just a function call that happens, on a 30-day timer. Like what was and then adjust basically the settings. But I think that understanding, like if I just told, a thing, go make me like SEO content, it wouldn't focus on that, right? Like in that specific kind of, what would you call it? Like industry specific form. Like
you need domain expertise to build this out.
Exactly. And I think that all of these, like that is actually where the value and where I think these are going to be. Because like I'm over here and I'm like, yo, like how do I deploy this for every company, right? Like where it's like, cool, I have that. I have 10 different Twitter bots that are running that are all posting about different like customer segment, like, memes or whatever. Like we have LinkedIn accounts that is doing the same thing. I have, an AI that's basically has access to the HeyGen API. It's making UGC content and it's like testing that creative against each other based off of the conversion data that influences the next ad that it goes and it makes, right? And I think that that is where I see all this going, is it's like, and I'm thinking about it as like channel specifics, because that to me is like, it's a very finite thing, a very finite action that we're trying to get to happen. And then you, as in like a, a head of growth, or, a marketer, your job then is sitting on top of all of this, and like you're orchestrating that entire machine, and then just looking at the data that it's basically spitting back to you. So anyways, again, just the things that we're thinking about with all this, and we're far from this, right? Like we're doing small versions of each of these things, but anyway.
Well, I know like Greg Eisenberg's been talking about this too, with the way to think about agent teams and kind of the orchestration of it all. I think that to build something like this practically in a business, you need to have such deep understanding of your subject matter expertise in order to be able to like instruct from nascency an agent to build this thing, right? Like you have such deep specific knowledge about SEO that you can write the playbook that is so granular, plus the technical knowledge to say, go hit that API, go check that data point, factor it into a calculation like this, right? For me, and then I want to get back to kind of like the ability to sell something like this. Like for me, I would love to, pet project is make the agent that can do my process consulting analysis of my transcripts, right? So it's like when I know how to ask all the right questions because I've done it enough times, I want the agent to go in and say, okay, because I've listened to 20 or 50 or 100 of Grant's calls, I now know what to look for. I'm going to build out the flow chart, right? Can I get it hooked up to Whimsical's API or to Claude's mermaid charts and build out those assets? Because then if I can get 50 of those assets created for every audit call I'm on, well, then I don't need to have myself or someone else on my team go and build those flow charts. But that's still specific domain knowledge to what we do. The difficulty is like your SEO bot has general knowledge, like application. But I think as what I've learned in an agency doing automation, it's like if you go in and you want to be an agent creator as a service, you're going to need to somehow figure out how to download someone's domain expertise of 10, 15, 20 years. And that's going to be really hard. So like that we ran into the same problem with automation. It's like we can do customization and like every business is different. Yes. But there's best practices, right? And like we are going to kind of move people towards our best practices. Totally. It's a fine balance, really fine balance.
So I almost want, and I'm, again, this is just how I'm thinking about it, is like, cool. So you work in a specific industry. So for you, it's like you're doing consulting, say for like real estate agents, right? We know this is the same thing that they're having the same issues with. Like, I'm just thinking there's probably gets to a point where it's like you solve this problem, like where it's doing this analysis of the calls that you're talking about. You basically take that and like, is that just spun out into like, I'm going to go hire this employee, right? Like, and this is how I'm thinking about this now more and more, is like, that's actually probably the positioning of this is like, yo, you're going to hire an SEO specialist, and instead of it being whatever, $5,000, it's going to be $100 a month. And this person just like works it, this thing works in the background for you. Maybe it's not as good as like a super expert, but it's going to be at such a cost-effective price point that it's going to be obvious that you're going to go after this. And I don't really, like, I feel like it's still super early with all of these things, but like this is the angle that I feel like this all goes to. Like, and it's funny, Max and I have been talking about this internally, like we're building out this company Landing Cat, and like we're like, yo, all we really need is like, probably 4 cracked engineers that are like they're AI first programming, and then like with that, we then go and like I go and build the growth engine and my entire team is just like agents doing things, basically, is like what this evolves into, is how we're imagining kind of this like next evolution of a company. And if that is the case, then it's like, the resources necessary to get these things off the ground are like so much smaller than they were previously, basically. So anyway, I don't know where any of this goes, but
So I've got an interesting take on this, or something I want to get your feedback on. As we think about, let's say this is SaaS or services, it applies to both. If you can produce, call it 1,000 blog posts, that used to take one person 6 months, a year. I don't know. I don't do what you do, but let's call it 6 months. So that's a person for 6 months. Now let's say technology brings that down to 6 days. Now, effectively, you could reduce your costs, and now it's going to be $500 for those 1,000 blog posts. Awesome. If it's a race to the bottom, how do you get compensated, right? And so I was talking to a guy who was offering me performance marketing, $3,500 a month, plus a 12.5% commission on the performance. And that is something that he was charging a bank, the same exact offer, he told me, $27,000. Because he's added automation in and better standard operating procedures, he's been able to bring the cost down, attract a wider audience, but then tack on performance because he knows he's so good at it, right? So then my question to you is, let's say we're effectively creating a race to bottom plus $500. Does every business now become a performance-based business? That kind of feels like where it has to go, because if everything is so cheap, like you're not going to go pay an agent $5,000. Like what SaaS company is, like no SaaS company is going to be able to sell a $5,000 agent if you can turn around and whip one out in a weekend for 500, right?
Tell that to Salesforce, but
yeah.
I agree. And then at the same time, I don't know, like it's, dude, so much of this is just who went to dinner with who and like, where did they go?
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
as it always is.
So, for sure. But to focus down on the like early stage company standpoint, like I think 100% you're right. Like all of this goes to zero. I think there's probably a time frame where it happens. Also, there's like, I think agents that are specific to different categories will be a different thing, right? Like agents for software companies is like a way different, like everybody's doing this, right? Like everybody is playing this game. So the cost will be beaten up faster. But in contrast, if you look at like, again, just like agents for dentists as an example, again, like that is going to be a less, like dentists aren't building these for themselves, right?
True.
So the cost for beating that up, like to hire, if you hire an AI receptionist for whatever, $299 a month, right? That is going to be more, like the cost approaching going to zero with that will like happen at a slower pace is kind of my thought here. But I don't know, man. I mean, I think we're getting to this place where like a company is going to be able to market itself and like build itself in small versions. Like I think right now you could actually do this with like a print on demand store. Do you know print on demand, like where it's like basically like products, like as you need them. So
I've got a buddy who's doing this right now. So let's hear what you have to say. And he actually got inspiration from your pod. So I'm ready.
That's amazing. That's hilarious. Okay, so that's like the first industry that I was really kind of made initial money in, was in that world. So I know a decent amount about it. I rode that first wave in like 2012, 2013. But the bigger thing there is like the process is very simple. It's basically like I find products that are bestsellers on these platforms or that people are searching for. I build a version of that thing, and then I like put it on my site, and I sell it through one of these other platforms like Amazon, Etsy, etc. And then basically it's just like that continues constantly. So like I'm just imagining this whole this like that business can basically like run and grow itself. Hypothetically, like it like knows like how to do the research, it knows how to run it itself. So I just feel like we're getting to this like weird moment where I don't know if you're thinking about this too, like within, because I'm technical-ish, but like not at the level that I would like need to be. I'm like over here and I'm like, yo, this is like the greatest moment in time for basically also the easiest to learn these new skill sets, like the easiest to learn like kind of like the ability to ship these products out, because like programming, like I never invested in it really heavily because there's no way that I would catch up with somebody that is just been doing this since they were 13. Now, because of this technology change, I think that actually is disrupted. And there's this like first moment in time where I'm like, oh, this is actually like, I can kind of get to a level that's like, oh, this is like pretty good, right? So anyway, I don't really have a question here. I think the bigger thing is like how, like, I mean, what do you think with these companies that you're working with? So it's like, okay, they say they have 20 employees. Like, do you think they can function like a 200-person team, like with even just the automations that you're seeing, or like, are we just in the early days of this? And again, I don't really have a solid question right in here, but
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think about, right? Is like the Zapier killer is out there, right? Someone is the AI agent native builder platform. There's Lindy, there's Plum, there's another one that I can't think of the top of my head, right? There are people who are trying to come after this space. I think when we look at service-based businesses, which is who I am primarily servicing, they are going to have a harder time adopting agents because it's such a person-to-person business, right? So like if you've got an SEO agency and they're whipping out blog posts, you might be able to do all the first drafts and the second drafts with the agent. But at the end of the day, you still need someone that's very technically sound and savvy to be reviewing that work and then be the account manager. And so I'm seeing a lot of people come to me asking for technical account managers because they need someone that can understand the work that's being done on the ground and relate that to the client. So maybe what we see in B2B service land is a rise in technical account managers, where people who might have been originally running the ads are now the orchestrators and the account managers and client relations. Because then you can shift, like for every pod, right? A pod would be an account manager, 3 SEO writers, a designer. Okay, so that's 5 people. Maybe for every pod, that gets reduced down to 1 person. The original account manager who wasn't super technical, they're out. Designer, they might be able to service, instead of 1 pod, they service 3 or 5 pods. And then you've got 1 technical SEO writer who becomes the technical account manager, and they need to be a people person. I think that could be an evolution so that you can hide the technology still in the corner and have a human on top. But I think a lot of these businesses that are still human to human, a lot of B2B services, marketing, creative, et cetera, you can't get rid of all of it, right? So you still need to have that human to human relationship, because that's why people like service instead of software. They want custom, they want people, they want to feel heard, listened to, et cetera.
Ah, that's so interesting.
And I'm just a nut that loves that.
No, totally. And I think it's like, it's all, I don't know. I was talking to a friend who's in sales, and like, he's like, yeah, I can do, what a SDR was doing. But like, again, to get that final kind of trust, especially when it's like a large enterprise, like sale, it's totally it's just like, is it a human? It's just like, do I like this person? Which is again, so, and I think that is like more and more what these roles and kind of jobs fall into. But anyway, we're going on and, off on this tangent on like what could be. I'm very interested in like what like is happening right now. And what are the marketing like automations that you're seeing be really effective for companies? And like, what are the things that people need to be thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we've kind of come up with recently that a lot of people have talked about, founder-led content. I personally struggle with getting my content brand out there. I know you don't. You clearly have a good system going. You're freaking on top of it. But a lot of people struggle to just make time for that. And so now with the rise of note takers,
because like your knowledge is like something people would geek out about. Okay. Literally, like you could just do a YouTube channel and then like take the transcript and be like, what are the 10 insights from this video? Like turn these into 5, each of these into a post. The post should be only 10 sentences or 5 sentences long. Each sentence can only be 15 words. And like you just made like, Twitter, LinkedIn content for the entire week, right?
Exactly.
So anyway, I guess let's talk about that at some point. Like I'm happy to just like we do an hour, man, and we just like I could totally design this whole thing for you.
So we've built that exact thing. That's what we just released. So we call it call to content, because so many people are getting on calls and they don't have like, I don't sit at a blank page and go, what's the smart thing I talked about this week or today? It happens in calls, right? People ask questions, we answer, it's sales, it's expertise, et cetera. So we take all of people's Fathom note taker notes, transcripts, or whatever else you use, but we like Fathom. And we take those and we run those through a bunch of prompts to create topics, spicy takes. And then when that spicy take is made, it comes to a Slack bot that says, hey, do you actually like this? and you can approve it for LinkedIn, you can approve it for Twitter, for blogs, for Instagram, etc.
Fascinating.
And then that goes straight to your content management system for you to edit and post. And that has been super helpful for me because I can now have my content pipeline like of things I say I like full all the time. That has been a huge game changer for me.
Okay,
so
why are you not just selling that at like, whatever, $500 a month? Is this like a new products or service offering?
Yep, the website just got finished yesterday. It's like $400 for an implementation and $60 a month. So for the AI costs and everything, we run all the automations on our account.
Okay, so this is how I see this all going. Is like you're going to have these studios that are doing these like, again, your type of work, or they're going to identify some large. Basically, it's going to like consulting evolves into a productized service, or just like a product that's an automated version of this. I was going to ask you if this is what you guys were thinking about, like with the product direction that you're going in, of like, cool, we're doing this automation service agency. We're going to spin out these different products, like using this tool set that we have. Like, dude, I think that's going to just go absolutely ballistic. And I think this is how, like, again, somebody else just did this recently. It's Jason over at like Meme Lord Technologies or whatever. It's basically like what they're doing is like, they just like drop you memes, like daily memes that you need for your specific business. But it's like, he has this template and then it's context aware of your company. And then it basically is just like building these memes out for you. And I feel like this is this new kind of like hybrid that's happening where it's like, it's software that's enabling this activity that before like a human has to be entirely involved with. And just, again, I think more like how, and I've been saying this for like 2 years now, but it's the job role of everybody is just going to turn into that curator. Like that is really what they're going to be, right? It's like they're going to be that last 5%, that last 1% of this thing that's basically just saying yes. All of the labor is going to be handled by these automations or by basically these workflows that are being built out. So, dude, that's I love it. I also want to play with it at some point. So please let me.
Dude, so go to, I don't know if you screen share on the podcast, but we put a PLG on the site so you can go in and drop a transcript and it'll send you a Google Doc and it'll say, watch the magic happen. 3 LinkedIn posts are going to load into this. So if you pull it up, there's a little letter from me and then there will be 3 LinkedIn posts that get added over the next 3 minutes. And then
what's the domain, Grant?
grantbot.co/call-to-content.
Okay, word.
Is there a chat on here?
Yeah, there is a chat. I'll screen share right now though, just to show it, because I'd be curious to do this live.
The big reveal. Hopefully it works.
No, we'll be. Sweet. So transcript here. I'll just grab one from Swell real quick.
So yeah, we're in the middle of a big rebrand, trying to look a little bit more sophisticated with our colors and whatnot. And then, should be an exciting 2025.
Sweet, dude. Also, so this is all just automations, like basically no code, or did you build, like, is this more custom that you built out?
Nope, all no code. So this is the demo version, and then you'll get an email right now from me. And all of it's no code. It's effectively the same prompts, but a different version of the deliverable. Normally we deliver it in Slack.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
and
cool.
then Slack to Notion or ClickUp or wherever you're doing content.
Fascinating. So it's just like all of your calls basically are constantly being turned into this?
Exactly.
Fascinating.
And then we're looking specifically for the content that you're talking about because we don't want to take someone else's words and so on.
Totally.
Oh, come on. I'll go check my logs.
Of course. I'm like, get a live demo going. This is a really interesting idea of like, it's passive content.
Yep, exactly.
It's basically like, this is just happening in the background as you go about doing.
Well, that's the thing, is that founders all struggle with making time for shit. So it's like, this is the way that you can actually get something done and make it useful.
Totally. No, I think what I get really, interested with all of this stuff is like where where it finally ends up, I think, is that the domain knowledge that you personally have is like in this repository. Like, again, if it's just like listening to your calls, etc., it's basically going to have this whole knowledge base about like how you think, how you approach all of this. And then from that, it's just like, I mean, why doesn't it just run your LinkedIn account? Why doesn't it just run your Twitter account, etc., right? And then again, plug into that API data. It's funny because this almost turns into like this like central repository that then it's pulling like just new. If you're adding to it constantly as well, you have almost this like you're almost like injecting new DNA like into that content library. So like you get random variances because as like the corpus grows in its difference, it allows for like, and the data is streaming in from wherever you're doing the distribution. Like you'll just get like these iterations that it's almost like anomalies will probably arise out of that because it's like this data set is changing that constantly. But anyway, did you get that to work?
I got the notification that it went through, but now it's not going.
Oh, there it is. My bad. Hold on.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet.
Dude, I swear, man, if that happened to me on your pod, all of a sudden I'm like, God, I've tried this so many times. Little suspense for the boys.
Cool. So it sends this automatically.
Yep. And then at the bottom
Amazing,
of that
dude.
doc, the posts start to come in.
This is amazing. And it just is populating these. And so like in real time, it's basically going to be writing these out, happening in the background.
Exactly. So if you scroll to the bottom in 30 seconds, a minute, you'll see the next one load in and then the next.
Dude,
and we'll do
this.
It's 3 for the demo and then the transcript pops in at the bottom.
Oh my God, this creates engagement too. So if you're like pinging them within Slack, right? It's like every hour you drip a
Not even every hour, man. If
a
some
new
people
post.
like it really depends on if you're doing 30-minute calls, 50-minute calls, hour-long calls. Like the real problem that I think we're going to run into is people are going to be like, wow, why am I getting 4 Slack messages every 30 minutes from this account?
Totally.
Like I'm busy, I'm in back-to-backs. Like what's the solve for that? We'll find out, right? It's like, I know people want the content, but do you want to see it in Slack or do you just want to see it in your CMS? I don't know yet. So TBD,
Totally.
That's the product mind.
Totally. And so then they say they okay this, right? They reply back, okay, like whatever. And this automatically goes and gets scheduled to the channel that they're trying to basically do get this out through.
So we've talked to a lot of people who are in the content space and they say that scheduling posts can be iffy. So we just put them into Notion or ClickUp wherever you edit your content. And I think that the other idea here is that a lot of founders, they're not the ones who are actually posting, right? They might have someone else on their team that's going to do actual copywriting. So we just want to put them in a place where someone else can work on it.
Gotcha. No, that makes total sense. Dude, I love this so much.
Yeah.
Such an amazing like use case of this. Talk to me about how did you identify this? Like, what was the kind of like where did this stem from? Was like a recurring thing that you saw from the conversations you were having, or?
There's a few. So one, we had a different productized service around delegation and people's eyes weren't really lighting up the way that they do when you talk about content. And that's inherently because content is revenue generating. Delegation is like profit maximizing, right? It's not something sexy. So content is sexy. So that was one piece. 2, I have this problem, right? I don't do content nearly well enough. This has helped me. I've got 200 pieces of content in my pipeline right now. Amazing. I don't need to worry about that. If I turn it off for the next, I don't know how many weeks that equals, I'm good. Now, the last one that really made me excited was I was talking to someone at Fathom. I'm in touch with their partnerships team, someone that was interviewing power users who hears all about like the most extreme use cases. I'm talking to her and I go, hey, I'm thinking about building this thing where we turn all of the call transcripts into content. And she goes, I've done a lot of these calls. I've literally never heard someone say that. And I go, okay, cool. Now, am I putting myself on blast here by telling everyone on the pod? Yeah, I am, but I think it's a pretty awesome use case. I would encourage you to try it out because it's such a fun one, right? It's like, how do I nail my voice? How do I nail the hook? How do I nail all those things?
Yeah, totally.
It's good prompt engineering. It's a good automation. You don't have to go and, build a fully fleshed version with a Slack bot, but it is a really awesome use case that helps out a lot of founders and sales reps. I think that's the other one that people miss out on is like, you give this to all your sales reps, they're the ones that are constantly selling and talking about the features. So like if they're getting dynamic input from their leads, their prospects, and et cetera, that is great content. And each of your sales reps should be posting on LinkedIn and building a personal brand, and that turns the flywheel. So that's my soapbox. I'm super excited for this.
How are you thinking about this for an organization? So say they have a team of 10 sales reps that are all working. Like, do they each have access to this? Is it a single channel that it's in? Are they like, what does that look like from a structure standpoint?
See, that's the beauty of doing this in no code, right? And we've had this conversation about product versus no code dozens of times. By doing it this way, I can make it modular. So if a team of 10 sales reps wants a single channel with their head of marketing in it, who's just the one who's approving for which platforms different posts are going to go to, great, run it that way, right? But if you want each person to have their own notifications or no notifications and it goes straight to Notion or ClickUp, fine, run it that way. We're happy to make that customization. So I think if you've got a team of 10 reps and they're all down to be personal brand people, which I think at this stage in the game, everyone knows is the right idea, then get it for all 10 times implementation fee, have it run, and then get the marketing team to do the final edits, send it on its way. Get a virtual assistant or Swell to schedule it out and get it going. But I think that this is a no-brainer for generating that getting over a blank page and generating those ideas. You already have the ideas, just get them written into a format that someone would actually want to read.
Dude, I love that so much.
Yeah.
So the like, are you guys thinking about, so just getting back to this meme thing, like, I feel like templates evolve with the platform.
Mm-hmm.
So those adjustments need to be made. Like, are you being proactive with, or are you being responsive to like, hey, we're seeing the client like want this different style? Because I'm just thinking about like something we're constantly testing is like, okay, what are the different the formats that we can experiment with on the platform to try to identify those? I mean, I guess the larger question here is like, can we build something that basically identifies a format shift? Like, here's a style, or like, even just like white space usage or whatever. And then based on that, you're like, hey, we're seeing these perform better. Like, there's probably a cross learning that's going to happen, I guess, is like the bigger thing I'm trying to say. And so then it's like, do you deploy that out to all of your clients simultaneously? Or is it like, it's thinking about it as they're each siloed? And I mean, personally, it's like, yo, we're seeing this work. You guys should probably do this if you want to get more reach, like, is the natural thing. But,
yeah, it's a good point. So we have, there's a tool called Prompt Hub that allows you to test, like, you can house one prompt and deploy it in multiple zaps. So we've experimented with using that to have the same content in all of the different implementations of a tool like this, like same prompts universally, change it once, apply universal, et cetera. The point that you're making about like, I'm seeing this format work, let's roll that out to everyone. It's a fine line. And I'll be honest, like, we're not a content agency. I'm not studying it myself. I'm very fortunate to know a lot of people who are, like you, right? So I've got a few people who run content agencies around newsletters, ghostwriting services. We have some ghostwriting clients as well. So I do chat with them about like, hey, what are you seeing? Are images really important? I know everyone's up on video right now. I know you included. So like, thinking about some of those things, there are people who are smarter than me about what's working on the platform. What I'm trying to do is get thought turned into postable content. And if your head of marketing wants to make the final decision, please do that.
Style. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So delegate it. No, that makes total sense. Dude, I love this. It's super fascinating. Any other stuff that you're seeing or you guys have built, or like these different automations that are on the front line that are exciting?
Other ones that are really excited. I think people are really just coming. I don't know if I'm late to the party or if you never know where you're at on the adoption curve, but I think a lot of people are starting to figure out like what's possible with intent signals. And when you combine something like Trigify with Clay and run that into a lead score and HubSpot, like that full funnel of someone doesn't know about me, but they're interested in what I talk about. So maybe someone commented on a Notion LinkedIn post. Okay, interesting. Comment on Notion. Then I grab that information and I run it through Clay and I find out, hey, you've got a company with 10 employees and you're a B2B service provider. Amazing. Okay, I just enriched that LinkedIn profile, found out everything about your company. Fantastic. Now, I think that that's an interesting person to reach out to. I'm going to then send an audio DM automatically saying, hey, how's it going? Saw you're interested in Notion. How, like, onward and upward, whatever. Great. Gets the conversation started. That's that personalization that, like, even me just saying that, I've never said those words out loud and I'm blown away, right? Like, that's nuts. Those are the types of things that we're able to do now because Trigify and other tools that can grab that intent data, Phantom Buster is another one. You can string a lot of these along. And like, that's an area of automation that we don't touch too often, but I love talking to people who are jamming on lead gen automation. It's a totally different field. People ask me if I can do cold email. Can I do cold LinkedIn stuff? I go, I could, but I'm not the best, right? Someone else is out there. And when I jam with those people on those things, that's where I'm like, wow, it's really speeding up how we can find the people who are in those buyer intent windows. That's a really interesting field. So I think the social platforms, like, we all think we have to use them through advertising to find our ideal customer. I don't think that's the truth anymore. I think there are intent signals that we can pick up on through other tools. And as long as those tools don't get shut down from the platform, because I know LinkedIn's a real Grinch about that, there's a lot of things that we can do with that type of data.
I want to connect these two things, like what you just built with this idea that you just presented. So imagine like you're a sales representative and you're doing these calls and it's like this thing is recording in the background. It's writing, all of this content. Also, like, while we've been talking this entire time, I've just been watching this content stream in this Google Doc, which is hilarious. You can see this here.
Love it.
But anyway, to get back to this idea, so you get that content, it's being written, et cetera. It's being posted to your LinkedIn. And if you're doing, again, like if it's identifying these problem solution, kind of that storytelling piece, posting that automatically or whatever, building memes, et cetera, the people that go and engage with that content, like, that's an intent signal that they would be interested in the thing that you're doing. I'm just imagining connecting that with like that clay data that you have, or that, whatever else that you're using. And it creates this whole flywheel then, right? So it's like you do sales calls, content gets made out of sales calls. People engage with that content. They turn into sales calls, which then, and you just go around that cycle. And I think this is actually how I see a lot of these applications being applied, like in these early days, is going to be these things that, like, before, everybody wants to do this, right? But it's just impossible to like actually like find the time. And this is actually the automation, like the best use cases of these automations is when it like almost magnifies like what the person is doing already, right? So it's like you're doing these sales calls, just basically take that and turn that into
get more juice.
Exactly. And again, I think that is just like such a good way to think about this and a good way to look at it. And like what you guys are doing is so fascinating in that way. Are there any other kind of like tool sets or stacks or things that you're seeing on the automation side? And like also, I'm curious what people are asking for from a content standpoint. So you've talked about like, founders are looking for these posts or sales individuals. Like, are there any other content types that you're seeing become like more and more desirable from the clients that you're working with?
I think that the image generator for business content, so accurate letters, accurate words, accurate quotes, that's going to be a big win. There's a tool called EasyGen that I absolutely love for that. So that's another option for image generation, and they do writing as well. But from a alternative form of content, like, no, I don't come across any other requests besides LinkedIn posts. I think a lot of people are migrating to that platform. I don't
for
do
all
any
their
video
business.
Yeah, I don't do TikTok shorts or anything like that. I'm thinking about doing some YouTube stuff, but I would not be the owner. I'd want someone else to think about scripts and stuff like that. And
No,
I know
makes
that
sense.
with Swell, I can throw my podcast in there and get some shorts too. But I'm not close enough to content specific automation custom besides what we do with call to content.
No, that makes sense. No worries at all. On the like any other stuff on the automation side, like the business automation side of the processes side that you've seen recently that you thought was like a really interesting use case or like a different way to implement this tooling?
Yeah, there's one feature that I'm really excited to dive deeper on, and that's the ClickUp API or the ClickUp AI model that they've got in there. So a lot of people are chasing, AI project manager. It'll read your Asana, see what's going on and all that stuff. But to build a new platform, you have to catch up on all that other stuff, right? That's why the incumbents have their advantage of, hey, we already built out a really nice data hierarchy, data structure, et cetera. One thing that ClickUp has done really well is for a B2B service business, I could go in and say, hey, what was all the stuff I did for this client this week? And it'll link the tasks that are done, that are marked done, and write it in the form of a client report. Like that is something that would take a project manager or an automation engineer probably 30 minutes to write something that's like presentable. I can get a first draft with actual accurate data in there that's linked. So I can send it to someone. If I have external client dashboards, I can say, hey, click on the link and see what we built, right? Here's a screenshot. If you want to go into ClickUp, most people don't. But like that function of it's an AI for project management, but because it's been done so well, you can actually use it for external writing. And I could use it if there's enough detail and context in there. I could use it for content creation too, because it is a very robust use of OpenAI's model inside of your project management tool. So there are people who are going to try to reinvent the wheel AI first. More power to you. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Hell yeah. However, ClickUp has done a really good job with their AI model living inside the tool. I think it's got best-in-class data hierarchy as it is. Throwing on AI on top of that for my client needs, for my internal reporting needs, so I don't have to micromanage. Like that's my dream as a project manager / founder. Like I'm trying to be in there as little as possible. That's
Totally.
awesome. So ClickUp AI, I want to give them a shout out to because I think that's been done really well.
Yeah, I think just the recap of like activities is such a good thing. I mean, at one point we were looking at this if like just so everybody knows what's been going on on like a weekly basis, especially in like startups when you're growing super quick. It's like, what the hell has happened? And when you get to like employ 20, because you can't talk to everybody anymore.
Totally.
So it's like, yo, can I just get like an app? We imagined it as like you get and this might be something for you to build, which I'd be super curious about, is like, it's a Slack notification. It's like, yo, record a voice memo. And then of everything that happened this week or like things you thought, basically prompts them, walks them through it. Take that, it aggregates it, it goes to the CEO, and they suddenly have like a view of everything that's like happened to their the team within that weekly basis. So they're like up to speed in a sense like when that organization is at that level where it's like it's starting to break because I can't be in relationship with every person on the team anymore. But anyway, just another random thing. But
personal company podcast, I think would be sweet to take that report,
100%,
throw it in 11
just like a
labs.
recap.
Yeah.
Totally. I'd be curious to honestly, I feel like some people experimented with this, but like couldn't get the traction to happen, like with their reach out. But I feel like with the work that you do, it might be like something that's like way more in your kind of, world from an execution standpoint. But anyways, man, thank you again for coming on, and where can people find you if they want to reach out and work with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best place for things I'm writing about. I'm the only Grant Hushik, so check me out there. And then the website is called grantbot.co, and we should have a spicy new website in a couple of weeks here. So I'll be excited for people to see the before and after on that. But yes, always happy to talk to people. I love, if you're interested in automation and AI stuff, Cody has done me an extreme blessing by sending really cool people to me that want to work for GrantBot. So if you're curious, I take pretty much every interview that comes in the door because I love meeting builders. So come chat. Would love to meet you.
Awesome. Dude, thanks again. We'll include all that in the show notes as well. And brother, I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.